All right, we're going to do something a little bit different in this episode of Ivory GC. Luis Vacanti joining us for the second time. He was a first episode guest, and he's been a longtime client of Ivory Law Groups and a trusted partner and mentor of mine, and someone I have a lot of respect for. So I thought it would be helpful to have him come on the podcast again, and I thought we could talk a little bit about how Ivory Law Group and Analytic Partners are working together. You and I have had countless conversations, more along the strategic lines of how you see growing your legal department at Analytic Partners and how Ivory fits into that picture. And it's a fluid, evolving process and something that I think others might find interesting. So thanks again for coming on, Luis.
My pleasure, Brian.
So where do you think would be a good place to start? Do you want to start with kind of the background of your when you came to the company, what the state of the legal function was, and then we can go from there.
Sure. So I was hired at Analytic Partners in August of 2022. I was effectively really the first legal hire. We had some legal professionals before, and we took our first outside investment in April of that year and decided that we needed a GC. So I was hired. And then when I started, I noticed immediately that the company is very conservative. So everything went to outside counsel. And I was very lucky because there was a man named Brian Becker who was also involved, one of the outside counsel involved. And if it wasn't for you, Brian, it would have been a much more difficult first few months for me. Absolutely. And you helped me get up to speed in a way an outside counsel doesn't. So I really appreciated that. That meant a lot. So
it was my pleasure. I mean, Ivory started working with Analytic Partners like maybe 8 or 9 months before you had joined, and I knew that the company was starting to look for a general counsel, and I wasn't sure who it was going to be, of course, and whether or not they were going to see the value that we brought. And you and I were able to hit off a good professional relationship right from the start. And it's been a positive relationship, certainly for us. I think I can speak for both of us, but it's certainly been a great relationship for Ivory Law Group.
And for me as well. Since we've been together now for 2.5 years, and I do have only one regret, which is I can't take credit for hiring you because you're here before me. That's my only regret, I think.
Well, Luis, do you want to talk a little bit about what your legal department looks like today?
Sure. There's myself. We have a mid-level attorney who's responsible for helping me with compliance, as well as procurement related matters, supporting finance, corporate, and helping me manage the relationship with Ivory. We have an open position for a labor and employment person who can also do IP and insurance, so jack of all trades, so to speak. And then, my team, I do consider Ivory part of my team because the Ivory team handles all of my commercial agreement related needs.
Yeah. And we try to be an extension of your team. So our Microsoft Teams environments are connected on the back end. We share files with the broader organization through Microsoft Teams. We can chat through the chat function. And it really does feel like we're a part of your team, and appreciate you bringing us in as such. And it seems like the business folks view us as that. And that's what we try to accomplish, is try to be an extension of our clients' internal teams. So along those lines, how do you see Ivory integrating with your in-house legal team, and what impact has that had on your ability to scale legal operations efficiently?
So that's a very intense question to start, but the integration part's an easy answer. It's very seamless. I would say that, if it wasn't for the Ivory email, no one would know that you and the rest of the Ivory team isn't part of the AP legal team. Part of of what really has impressed me about Ivory is just your ability to adapt to our culture. I really appreciate how curious your team is. You want to know who's who at the company. You want to know about our processes, and you want to know the details of, what we're offering. And I think that really helps you be part of the team, because most
Yeah.
outside counsel, they don't either ask that, or they just don't have the time, or it's too expensive to do that. And then, the second part of your question, scale, look, to me, the Ivory team is very plug and play. You do a great job of training and supervising the staff. Um, you know, I I would say, if I were to hire somebody, like it can be kind of painful to bring someone in and to train someone. And that's what Ivory can do for me. It's hire, train, and that person is already part of the AP legal team, which is
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, so that
Yeah.
helps with the scale.
And to provide a bit of background about what the Ivory team looks like today, so we might, in addition to myself, we have a senior counsel. Her name is Stacy Reglin. She's an impressive background at Harvard Law School and Wilson Sonsini, and then she went in-house at Intel. And so what we try to accomplish is have really solid legal counsel provided by our senior counsel that have ideally some in-house experience that brings that practical approach to lawyering that sometimes can be hard to find with career law firm attorneys that have been a bit more removed from the business. And then in addition to Stacy and myself, we have two more junior attorneys that are located offshore, one in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and one in the Philippines. And they support Stacy and me with legal work, and they provide a level of affordability that really adds to increase the value of the Ivory team. They bill anywhere from $120 to $140 an hour as of today, and bring our blended rate. My rate's just over 500, and Stacy's around 450, and so our blended rate with Natalia and Nicole's support comes down into the low 200s, which is really competitive, from a cost perspective. And our philosophy is just getting the right people to do the right work and do it right. And so that, I saw it, private equity backed technology companies that I was previously corporate counsel at, that there was some work for a junior paralegal, senior paralegal, junior attorney, and senior attorney, but there was only enough work for one person. So I had one person in the middle, and that person did everything, and it wasn't always the most cost-effective solution. So that was the idea behind Ivory: is let's build a team that operates more like an in-house legal department, get the right people in place, and then allow our clients to use part-time resources in the way that they need to, and help our clients scale. So along the lines of quality of our legal services, one of Ivory's differentiators is its team of senior attorneys with both large law firm and in-house experience. How have you seen that depth of expertise translate into the quality of legal support that we provide to Analytic Partners?
I was always, I think, partial to recruiting attorneys who were trained at big law firms, for many reasons that I'm sure our audience is aware of. And then, once I hire them, I could train them on the differences between in-house and law firms, and there are huge differences. But and sometimes those attorneys would learn very quickly, and other times they would struggle.
Yeah.
And having senior attorneys on the Ivory team who have that experience is invaluable. I would say that, Stacy and the rest of the team, they have, and yourself, law firm standard quality of work, but with I would say, the practicality of in-house counsel work, and just the ability to understand how to communicate with business people on the client side. At law firms, sometimes you're the person on the other, your client is a lawyer or somebody who's very sophisticated. You're not necessarily communicating with a salesperson who doesn't have a ton of experience dealing with lawyers. And your team has, I think, that perfect mix of both.
Yeah, that's I appreciate you saying that. That's what we're going for, and that's it's an important part of our practice. That does require a different skill set. And we also assist analytic partners with legal operations, including RFP responses and implementing a contract management system, among other more operational aspects. Can you talk about how that support has streamlined your workflows and improved efficiency?
Sure. And, my philosophy is, something like a contract management system, right? For a small company like Analytic Partners. I have no idea which contract management system to get. Ivory, on the other hand, is going to be working with many, many, many clients, and you're going to have the exposure to many different types of contract management systems. Not just, knowing which ones your client have, but also working with them. And so it's really an added value that Ivory can give to a smaller company like mine, where we don't know what contract management system to purchase. Having the support of Ivory on that is invaluable. So that's one. And then two, I'm a big believer in legal taking over work that is not just legal, not just within the traditional legal function. And I've volunteered for that work, with the assumption that the Ivory team can help me, because it's just me, one more attorney in an open position. We can't handle RFP responses, right? Like myself and the internal AP legal team. But knowing that Ivory can learn how to do it and can work on things like RFPs, carbon emission accounting, that's invaluable. It gives me the confidence to volunteer for that work here at the company.
Yeah, we try to. I mean, I think across the board, legal departments try to hold themselves to a high standard, and maybe even high relative to the standards of other functions within a company. And we do pay attention to detail and try to be thorough. And so that tends to trickle down, throughout the various levels of a department. And so yeah, I think it's good to hear that we can deliver not just quality services at the senior most level of our firm, but also among the operational aspects too. So, and Luis, you and I both know that Analytic Partners and you have, and many technology companies have high expectations when it comes to turnaround time. So, can you share an example of a time when AP needed a quick turnaround on a contract, and how Ivory's responsiveness helped you meet that deadline?
All right, that's the easiest question you've asked me thus far, because let me see an example. Earlier today, yesterday, the day before, every day probably. I'm a big believer that time kills all deals, and so I have very aggressive SLAs with outside counsel, and I commit to the company that I am going to meet those SLAs, because it's important. It's an advantage that AP has over its competitors. Our legal team is fast. And so, yes, Ivory has met every single SLA I've ever put in place, and continues to surprise and shock me that you're able to do it.
I appreciate that. I mean, I'm going to let you drop in a few minutes here, and I'm going to stay on and show the audience that's watching on YouTube some of the tools that we're using internally to try to, just improve our efficiency, our turnaround time. We do feel like we're operating at a pretty good pace. So it's good to hear that feedback. Lastly, Luis, if you were to sum up the value Ivory brings to Analytic Partners in one or two key takeaways, what would those be?
Look, I think I mentioned before, adding members to the team. First, I have to recruit someone. That takes a while. Then train them. Then hopefully they work out, because when you interview somebody, you never know, right? That's a very complicated way of assessing, or not effective way of assessing talent. And then so hopefully they work out, and if they do, then hopefully they want to stay, right? Because good people tend to leave companies. So for me, Ivory does the recruiting, the training really well. So that's one. And then the cost-effective business model that Ivory has, like you said at the beginning, hiring a mid-level to handle everything is not cost effective. I can share Ivory resources with other clients of yours, so that gives me the flexibility to use senior counsel when I need to, use a paralegal when I need to, use a foreign attorney when I need to. So that's another reason. And for me, the last thing is Ivory just makes me look great to my stakeholders because you can meet SLAs, because the quality of the work is very, very good, and you know the company well, and you meet my SLAs, and you do it all at a cost-effective rate.
Yeah, I mean, one of the advantages of being remote is we can recruit globally, and we have low overhead, and so we've been able to pass through some of that cost savings to our clients. So I appreciate you, Luis, sharing your experience. Your partnership, as always, has been invaluable in our maturation, and so thank you for the partnership and the time you spent today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Brian. It's my pleasure. Thank you for all the help and support. I really appreciate it.
All right, so we had a chance to talk to one of our clients, Luis Vacanti at Analytic Partners, and hopefully that gives a bit of sense of what it's like to work with Ivory Law Group. I wanted to show for those who are watching on YouTube and can view the screen that I'm sharing, show you a little bit how we're operating the back end to make sure that we're being responsive to our clients, turning things around fast and being efficient. And it really starts with what we're looking at here, which is our task framework. So we organize all of the work that we do within Ivory into these buckets, these categories and subcategories. So for every client, we do some billable and non-billable work. That billable work gets broken up into these task categories here in blue that you see. And then those task categories can get further broken down into task subcategories. So commercial agreements, for example, can get broken down into customer MSAs, customer SOWs, vendor agreements, etc. And then we break those subcategories down even further into, their simplest component parts. So we know for customer MSA negotiations, for example, there will always be an initial draft of a contract. There will followed by one or more rounds of review, and then we'll finish by signing and completing the document. And so I took this concept from in an article I read about the person responsible for planning the Olympics, and his advice was breaking things down to their simplest component parts, and he analogized that to Legos. He said, so it's such a big operation like the Olympics, you need to break it down into 50 or 75 component parts that you just build on top of each other. In the same way that you build out with Legos. So these are kind of our firm's Legos. It's really important because we then everything that we do gets put into our project management platform called Teamwork, and so that's what we're looking at here. This is a template within Teamwork. So we essentially we structure Teamwork in a way that's consistent with our task framework. And it allows us to do a few things. One, have predictable processes that we follow. Every time we negotiate a new customer MSA, for example, we know that there's going to be some initial correspondence with the business team. We're going to review the draft for legal approval. We may need to follow certain steps in order to get that legal approval, and those steps can be reflected within a task template within Teamwork. We might need to get a finance approval, InfoSec approval, etc. And so, this is a way for us to standardize our processes, make sure that we're following a systematic approach to these negotiations. And then these templates are used to build out what we're looking at here, a sample client matter. And you can see that this largely follows the structure of the task framework. We've indicated that this matter is a commercial agreement. It's a customer MSA. We're in the initial draft phase. We're going to be following these sub-steps that we follow for this particular matter. And all the time spent on these particular tasks get logged right to the task within Teamwork. So this is how we do our invoicing. Our clients have access to their Teamwork environment, so they can go in and see the status of their matters in real time if they wanted to. And really importantly is all of this information within Teamwork becomes data. And that data gets exported into Power BI multiple times a day. And we've built some Power BI dashboards that help us report on where our time and our clients' resources are going. So this is one example of a service value, our service value dashboard. Service value just being our timekeeper billable rates times the time spent doing work on a particular matter. So for this date period, you can see that the service value has accrued, as shown over time by these timekeepers. There's a pie chart here that breaks down how much of the service value was accrued by Brian, Lisa, and in this case, Jessica. Down here in this lower left visual, all of the service value is broken down into our task categories and task subcategories. So we can see of the total service value accrued this month, how much went towards negotiating commercial agreements, went towards employment matters or securities transactions. And if you haven't had experience with Power BI, you can use the tools available to get further insights. So we could drill down into the commercial agreements task category, for example, and see which task subcategories are taking up the most time. So we spent so much on form agreements and generating automated agreements, customer MSA negotiations, third-party agreements, etc. So there's some really valuable insights that we can get, and our clients can see these dashboards again in real time. We do send out bi-weekly reports so that our clients see the service value that's accrued to date halfway through the month, and then at the end of the month. This shows a breakdown of service value accrued by task. So there's just a visual way of showing where resources are going. So this is the service value dashboard. We've also created what's called the matter summary dashboard that you're seeing here. It shows similar insights. We can see over time how service value has accrued, by whom, for which tasks, and in which task categories and subcategories. But we also take this dashboard a step further, and we calculate one of the metrics we calculate is average service value. So in this case, for a particular company, we're looking at their customer MSA negotiations, and we've got a line graph showing that over time, this is dating from January 1st, 2024 through the end of November 2024, we've negotiated 40 MSAs for a total service value of $154,000 or so, and that breaks down to an average service value of about $3,900 per MSA negotiated. And this graph shows how that average is changing over time. And so this is just a way for us to view internally how our operations are evolving, and we should be getting more efficient over time. So that's what this average service value graph will show us. And similar to what Luis and I had spoken about it, we can, because we represent multiple clients, we can do some benchmarking and see, okay, we know client A has a 3,900 average service value for their customer MSAs, but client B has a 2,500 average service value for their customer MSAs. What do we think is causing the difference? Is there something that we can do to customer A's MSA, perhaps modifying a provision that is particularly challenging during negotiations, and make that a little bit more customer friendly, and see how the average service value changes after that change has been made. So there are things that we're using empirical evidence for to really get some insight into how we're operating. We do a similar exercise with turnaround time. So this would be, each matter showing how long it took from start to finish to get a deal done. The turnaround time can be broken up in a variety of ways here as well as shown. And then the last metric is our average rate. So as we try to integrate more cost-effective attorneys that are skilled and can support our skilled senior attorneys, this average rate trend shows you how our blended rate changes over time. And so this is showing that we've been able to integrate some lower cost attorneys to bring our blended rate down over time. And so this just gives you a feel for kind of how we're trying to take a data centered and transparent approach to delivering legal services for our clients. We think we've got a really good foundation in place, and the more work we do, the more information we're getting, and the better insights we can provide to our clients. So we're excited about where we're going, and I hope this was informative for the audience to get a bit of a closer look under the hood of Ivory Law Group itself, and it brings a bit of a different perspective than our typical episode. So thank you for joining, and look forward to having you back soon.